All right, welcome to session 3, market research, an introduction to data axle reference solutions. We're going to do a demonstration of how to use it and just a few strategies for ways that you could use it to gather market research most effectively for your particular purposes. You'll see here my information at the bottom. You can always email me or call or reach out in whatever way you feel comfortable so that you can get the help and support that you need. I will say that last week we had one question in the response, which was, how often should I check ABI Inform? And that is where we located industry reports. So I found some indication that ABI Inform is updated every 90 days, but of course some industry reports are updated quarterly. So I think it depends on your industry. I think it helps to check in on ABI Inform on a regular schedule, but I don't think you would have to check on it every single day. I don't think that is going to be most effective for finding updated industry reports or staying on top of the industry reports. Perhaps just a schedule that makes sense for your industry and a schedule that makes sense for the reports that are available. So for example, if you notice that all of the industry reports seem to be published on a particular schedule, you might modify your schedule to check them based on that. So every 90 days is the information I found, but you want to take that as a suggestion. The schedule by which you check it is really up to you. All right, so I have a question for you that I'd like you to drop into the chat. Why does market research matter for you and your business? You can write anything that you would like. If you're like, it doesn't, and I don't think that it matters, that's okay too. That's an acceptable answer. So just take a minute to drop into the chat why or why not market research might matter or not matter for you and your business. So identifying estimates for customers. Yep, that's a great reason for why you might use market research or might need market research. Identifying target customer group, that's great too. To understand customer base and who the target market would be for the business, that's great. This will be a new business and know how to price your services. That's great too. That's a great way to think about it. Terry, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but from your perspective, as the director of the Small Business Center, can you maybe share a little bit about why you think market research would matter for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Just wanted to check. What we run into most often with our small business owners, especially if it's a business type that's new to them, like it's a new industry they haven't worked with before or worked in before, we find that market research can help them understand more about the industry that they're getting into. What the prospects for it look like in the future. Is it a growing industry? Is it an industry that's in decline? It also helps them kind of find the niches within that industry, right? So as a new business owner, we don't want to go into business being just like everybody else. We want to go into business being, how am I unique and different and special from everyone else that's offering the same thing or something similar in the market? So your research can help you find maybe what's not being offered in the market that you can offer to help you position yourself better. So better positioned businesses can charge more and they make more money in the long run. So there's lots of things to consider when you're doing a business plan, even if it's an industry that you've worked in for a long time and you think you know it well. I still encourage people to go do their market research because, again, what happens often is even if you worked in a business as say you're a manager for a business and you want to go open that type of business, maybe the business that you've been working in hasn't been considering what the long-term prospects for that type of business are. So market research, even when you think you know a market well, can really help you. So, I mean, I could go on for the length of this webinar, but yeah, I really and I find that people don't do that enough. They go too much on instinct rather than on facts that they can point to. So the reasons go on and on for why you should do your research before you either get into business or before you make a plan to grow your business. So you have data to work with rather than just your instinct.
Thank you, Terry. That really speaks to that business side of things. As y'all know, I'm a librarian, so I cannot give you advice on your business. But as Terry said, it helps to have the data. So we're going to do some small market research, just a little bit. This is an introductory session. You can do a lot with data axle reference solutions. So I just want to kind of give that perspective that this will not cover every industry. This won't cover every perspective or aspect, but it can give you an introduction to a resource that can be really helpful. I will say that I have found, even though there is a lot that this resource can offer, you really may want to practice with it before you say, I'm ready to use it. So you may just want to kind of play with it and see what you think. And if you're like, this is kind of a lot and I'm not really loving this, then you can always reach out and we can make a research consultation and we can just sit and I can show you how to use this a little bit more in detail. We can pull some things that might be relevant for you just to kind of show you a demonstration that is, in this case, very broad, but if you meet with me, then we can do a much more specific one. And there's the link for how you would book a research consultation, and that is up to you. You can do that whether you're early in the process or late. And although it is a challenging resource, it is super beneficial. I don't want to put you off from it just because it's challenging. It's just one of those things that you want to go in with an open mind of, I'm learning, I'm growing, I can't wait to see what I learn next. So we're going to basically introduce data axle reference solutions, demonstrate how to use it, and then really focus on how you can find your competitors or near peers, and then how to focus on customers. I will go ahead and tell you that during the customer portion, I'm going to pause the recording so that, that we can balance that little bit of knowledge and how we do those searches with privacy for the information that we find. So it's just a way to maintain respect for the information that we find. So just kind of keep that in mind. We will pause that recording. So if you go back and look for it, you won't see that small portion of it. And then we'll answer any questions, and that'll be it. And the only objective we have today is to become more familiar with data axle reference solutions. Does anybody have any questions right now that you want to drop into the chat?
Hi, I'm sorry, I was just able to get on because I had another meeting. You said you're done with the presentation?
Oh, I'm not done with the presentation. We've just got started.
Okay, thank you. I'm like, I missed it. Okay, thank you.
So we are going to focus on becoming more familiar with the data axle reference solutions. And then if there are any questions about your specific market, then depending on the specificity, we may say, let's try to answer it now, or we will try to answer it in an email or through an individual personal conversation. So market research matters. Terry talked about that a little bit, but I just want to emphasize that you can find your near peers and competitors through market research. And competitors can be helpful because knowing, what the landscape of your industry looks like in specificity helps you kind of think critically about the kind of data you need in order to be successful. But near peers is really great because it can say people who are doing the thing that I'm doing or would like to do, this is how they're thriving or doing well or maybe not. And this lets you sort of see a big picture of the data that's available to you. And if, for example, you wanted to argue that you believe you could grow, then a near peer can kind of give you a portrait of what that might look like. You can also find revenue data that lets you know a little bit more about the type of money that might or might not be made in a particular market or geographic region. Can kind of tell you a little bit about how companies are doing. And then consumer data, we will see that there is going to be quite a bit of data we can look up about people in the area where you want to start your business so that you can either effectively market to them or know a little bit about their preferences for a particular type of product or industry. So I do really want to make clear that Data Axle Reference Solution is available through your public library. I said last week, like, public libraries are great and that you really should get a public library card. And that can come off a little bit like, well, of course, she's a librarian. Of course, she thinks she should get a public library card. I don't work for the public library. I'm telling you right now, a public library card will be your very best friend through all of this research. It gives you access to this database, the database we looked at last week, and it gives you access to many more resources and databases, books, and articles that can help you to make wise decisions as you gather research, but also as you move into the market. Here are instructions for how to access this information through the CCCC library. Now, keep in mind, if you do go to the CCCC library to access this material, you actually have to sit in the library and use those databases. If you have your public library card, then you can actually access it through NC Live, log in with your library card and your library card PIN number, and then you will be able to access the database at any point from anywhere. You're like, I don't know how to get a public library card. Then I can send you some information about that. You can reach out to your local public library. If you have your card but can't remember your ID number or can't remember your PIN number, they will help you kind of get reconnected to your card or get you started on one so that you can access this database at literally any point, whether you're at home or you're at the library itself. Now for today, because it's easier for me, I'm going to go through CCCC library, but again, you will see me do that, but that's because it's easiest for me. You have access to all of these materials at the public library. So the two things we're really going to do today is using Data Axle to find competitors, near peer, and revenue data, and then using Data Axle to find consumer data. Both of these are handouts that you will get at the end of the session. I'm going to send out an email, a follow-up email, and these are going to be attached, but I'm going to drop them in the chat just so you can have them now. So there is one, and that is for using Data Axle to find competitors, near peers, and revenue data. And then here is the other link. This will show you how to use Data Axle to find consumer data for a particular piece of information. Now, I will tell you that the consumer data, again, you'll notice that at the end of the handout, just as in this presentation, there's a lot less specificity, and that's just because these documents and this presentation are going to go on a public platform, and I really want to be respectful of the data that we find. Those people don't necessarily, even though it's publicly available data, may not necessarily want that stuff in a handout or in a recording. So just kind of keep in mind, you're like, wow, this is really vague. That's the reason for that. But I can answer any questions, but I just wanted to clarify that the vagueness is an intentional choice. All right. So the first thing that we will do is we're going to use Data Axle and to look up competitors, near peer, and revenue data. I will show you kind of I don't want to say it's the way to necessarily think about your search tactics, but if you're like, this is really hard, this is a way that maybe will give you a shortcut into things. So first thing we're going to do is I am going to go to the CCCC library. Again, in order to access this database through the CCCC library, you'd actually have to be in the library, but there's that link for you just in case, even so. So in this particular demonstration, I'm going to scroll down to our databases, A to Z listing, and then we're going to click on the letter D for Data Axle. And then I'm going to click on Data Axle Reference Solutions. If you were wanting to access this through your public library, you would go to your public library's website. You would find likely the research tab and the databases, and then you would find this database and log in with your public library card number and your PIN number for that library card. If you don't know what that is, then that is something that the public library can connect you with. So this kind of went under like a little bit of a revision, but it is still the same resource. It's not anything that you need to worry about. So you can click ignore, and it's going to take you to the database. Continue to cite. Now, this may be an issue with just the fact that I'm on the internet here at the college. Yours may take you right there. So just persist and just keep going, and you'll see this page here. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at businesses to see what our competitors are doing and to see what kind of revenue data there is and to see what else is available about the businesses in this area for my industry. Now, you'll notice in the handout, I used a bookstore as an example, and I'm going to continue to use that example. We did last week, and so we'll continue again this week with this particular type of search. So, to be fair, a bookstore is pretty straightforward when it comes to the type of industry that it's in. However, if you're not sure, there is a way to find out more information. It may take you a little longer, but you kind of get more accurate information. So in this search, instead of doing the quick search, I actually clicked on the advanced tab because I really want to have more of this option here to search for company name or to do a keyword search or do a geographic search. And in the case of my little bookstore that I'm thinking about, I'm going to click on keyword, and then I'm going to search for my industry to see who else is in it based on how I would think about my business. So I'm going to do bookstore. There we go. And so you can see here, maybe there's a bookstores Christian. I can add that one there, but you know, then maybe I'm trying to expand beyond a particular type of genre for my bookstore. Maybe I want to have something that is like, you know, gives you a variety of types of information. And then you can see here, there's like Books a Million, Barnes and Noble. And I mean, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, they might be my competitors, but that doesn't really tell me much about my industry. It doesn't really tell me enough information yet. So in my case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the quick search. I'm going to click on that. And I know that one of my competitors, just like it said right there, is Barnes & Noble. So now I'm going to look up Barnes & Noble. I'm just going to look at any that are available. I don't need to limit to a geographic region because a Barnes & Noble, say in Raleigh, is going to be very similar to like a Barnes & Noble in California in the sense that they're both in the same industry. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to open it up. And I will see here that this tells me a little bit more about the industry profile. I'm looking at a Barnes & Noble that can then tell me, okay, book dealers, retail, that tells me maybe something I ought to look up, or book retailers and news dealers. Notice here that this tells me that's its primary keyword. Okay, now I know what I need to search for. So instead of searching for bookstore, which is the way I might think about it, I'm actually going to look at the way that this is being presented in this particular database. So book retailers and news dealers, got it. Now I'm going to actually do a new search, just come right back up to the top and click new search. And now I'm ready to go back to the advanced search and search my keyword a little bit more specifically. Book dealers. Now I'm going to search for that. And there we go right there. We have book dealers. I can also try like there's my book dealers equipment or book dealers supply, newspaper dealers, it's wholesale. I can click anything that I want really. I could do book retail. I saw that one on there. So book retailers, news dealers. You can see here, if I like certain things, I'm like, oh, this is kind of neat. Bookbinder retail, apparel retail. And I think, you know what? I'm starting to get a little outside my zone here. I can actually click what I've selected and take it off. So it's very flexible in the sense of I can do some keyword searches and click to add them and then click to take them off. Does that make sense? That sort of idea of you can do a little bit of searching, add some things, and then if things start to maybe go a little off track, you can take some of the keywords out and you can put some on there that are a little bit more accurate. So that is how I would find the keyword. So thinking about your industry, you might think about it from a particular perspective. You might try searching for the keyword and it doesn't give you exactly what you want. So then you might try thinking about maybe what's a big corporation or competitor, and then search that particular competitor just to see how they think about themselves and to think about how their industry is categorized, and then use that to pull in more information. Is that the way that some folks would typically do it? No. But I actually think maybe working backwards from what you already know can help to inform what you need to know. But that is my perspective. If you were like, that doesn't help me at all, that's okay. We will find a way, we'll think about a way to get the information to be meaningful for you as we work with this database more, or if you set up a research appointment, that's something that we can work together to do. So now I can search book retailers and news dealers. But if I search right now, I'm going to be searching a huge region. And I really don't need to be doing that because personally, me and my little bookstore, we're trying to focus on just a small area. We're not really trying to focus on all of North Carolina, though this database could actually show us that. I'm not trying to focus on the Southeast, though this database could show us that. I'm actually trying to focus on a couple of counties in North Carolina. So what I can do is I'm going to click on county, and then I can add which counties I would like to see. But you'll notice here, you can do a map-based search. You can actually draw on a map, which I'll demonstrate with the consumers, a certain geographic shape. And then you could, you could see who is in that region. You could look city, state, metro area, zip code, neighborhood. So there's a lot of different ways to search. But for this particular demonstration, I'm going to search county-wise. So I would click the county, and then we'll select the state. And then we'll scroll down to North Carolina. And then it's going to give me all the counties in North Carolina. Let's go ahead. Let me try Wake. I think that would be a good one for me, and we'll click on that. I'll try Harnett. There's Harnett there. Let me try Chatham. And then I'll also try Lee. There we go. Now let's say, for example, I'm like so excited. I can't wait. I'm going to search Orange County too. This is great. And then I'm like, well, you know what? That's actually too much. I think I ought to take one off. I can click on whichever one I don't want, and it's taken right off. Just like with the keywords, you can add a few things, and then you can say, well, that's kind of a lot. I'm going to take that off. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And so you're not stuck with the original search, and you can always revise a search. So let's say I wanted to search 5 counties, and then I said, this is a lot. I can go back to the original search, revise it, and then continue to do a little bit more searching based on my new revised search. So now I've got my 4 counties here that I want to search. I'm going to scroll up to the top. And then I'm going to click Update Count just to see what I'm looking at here. 0 records were found. Okay, so I know that that's not necessarily correct. Sometimes that happens, and that's just because I have certain search terms that maybe aren't correct or aren't what I'm looking for. So let me try, see here, let me try just clearing these fields really quick. Just see if I can do North Carolina. Let me just try Wake and see what happens. Nope. Okay. So, let's try, let me try apparel and see what happens. Now we got 24. So really, I just needed to add that one little keyword. You'll notice here that some of these searches don't always work. I will say that when I was searching for consumers, I was trying to do a map-based search, and I was drawing the map. And the map can be a little challenging, so it takes a little bit of practice. And I ended up searching, and I think maybe I had searched just for like a 1-mile radius on a particular area. And it said, this thing doesn't exist. This thing that you're looking for doesn't exist. And I thought, oh, okay. So I had to actually practice a little bit, expanding some of my search terms, rethinking about how I was searching things, and then starting over. And then I was able to find what I was looking for. So then I can click View Results. And now you can see here, I've actually got a couple of things that don't really fit what I'm looking for, but it does tell me some names, executive names, street numbers, city, state, zip code, phone number, the corporation tree. I can explore that, but it really isn't doing what I want it to do. So I'm going to go back and try a new search and sort of see if I can find something that's a little bit more effective. So let's try this. Let's try I'm going to try Barnes & Noble. Let's try book dealers and retail. if I can, see, maybe that one doesn't want to work. Let's try this one. Let's add the books. Let's go back to the bookstores and add that. And then try adding newspaper. Oh, newspaper dealers. Yeah, let's do that one. Okay, so now let's say I'm going to do a county. North Carolina. And I think I'll do Wake County. I think I'm going to do Harnett. And I'll do Lee. Okay. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to update the count. We got 12 people here. Okay. And now we can kind of see if there's anything that might stand out to me or might be interesting to me. And I can explore a little bit more, maybe about the Barnes and Noble and what money they're making. Now, I will tell you this. This heat map thing is really interesting. It actually shows you sort of the where the stores and where these things are located, but it only does it if there are actually 50 or more results. So notice here that, oh, actually it did work this time. There we go. You can see here, here's my concentration of the information right here. Concentration of the stores and where they're located. Then we've got one over kind of here in Sanford, but it lets me know that maybe in other parts of the counties that I'm looking at, it's not as concentrated. Maybe there's room for me to explore over here in Eastern Wake. So let's go back to that. And then I'm going to click on this Barnes and Noble. This one's in Cary. It lets me know, maybe I want to put a bookstore in Cary. Can kind of scroll through here. And I can see location, the employees, the hours that they have. But perhaps the most important thing for you is the sales volume by year. And here's the sales volume that they have. Now, let me go back really quick. This is all publicly available information. I did want to point out one thing. This is a great example in this case. You'll notice here that there was only 2 years worth of data. And you might say, well, why is that? That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. What can I do with that data? There could be a lot of reasons for that. In this case, you'll actually see here that this is where the new Barnes and Noble in Cary is located. It moved from the Maynard Road location. So if I'm like, I need more information, then I can actually go and look at some of the past data. But you'll have to think about the data that you do see. If you're not seeing what you want to see, you may have to figure out why that is. Now, I'm able to say, oh, yeah, I remember that because I remember that Barnes and Noble moving, and that was a big deal at the time. But you'll notice here, there's a lot more information and a lot more data. Is it the same store? Pretty much, it's just located in a different area now. Does that make sense? So sometimes you may find data and you may say, well, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for me. When I did a little bit of research on a couple of restaurants, I found one, I can't remember what it was, but I remember it had not made a whole lot of money. There was only like a year or two's worth of data, but it was actually a secondary location for a flagship store. So then I had to go back and look at the big picture, not just the small picture. So when you're thinking about your own market research, you may want to think about the kind of data that you're looking at. Does that make sense? And then now I'll be honest with you, this is not the most dynamic way to engage with the information, but you can do it. If you click right here beside the company name, it's going to select all of these pieces of information, and each portrait and profile is going to have, that revenue data and some information about the books, about the company. In this case, a bookstore. I can download this information, I can print this information, or I can save this search. If I download it, it downloads it into an Excel spreadsheet. And again, it's maybe not as dynamic, but it is easier to kind of open all of that data up side by side to be able to see it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and do a new search. And then we're back to the original sort of page. And you can do as many searches as you would like. If you find that you search by county and then you're like, this is great, I would like more information on a particular zip code or a particular city in the county, then that tells you you can do those kinds of searches by searching your keyword and then changing the geographic region. Okay. So now what we're going to do is look for consumer information. So I'm going to go to the home page. And I'm going to search for my consumers here under US Consumers and Lifestyle. Click search. And this is probably more effective to search a geographic region and not for individual people. So I'll show you how that works, and then I'll pause the recording so that we can kind of respect the privacy of the information that we find, even though it is publicly available information. I just don't want to record that. And then we'll kind of go from there. So let me go ahead and click. I'm going to do a map-based search. This allows me to draw on the map. I'm going to click map-based search, and then I'm going to open the map. And I can choose to draw a shape. I can define the radius. I can do a boundary select. Those are probably the three most beneficial. So I think I'm going to scroll in here to North Carolina and move my map around a little bit. And you can see here I've got my region here that I think I'm going to draw a shape. Now this can be a little challenging, so just take a little bit of time. You would click, and then you would drag to wherever you want. I'm trying to figure out, let me see if I want to go a little closer. There we go. I think I'm going to do Pittsburgh. And let's see if we can get it to let me draw a little bit. So you put down where you want it, and then you just draw your shape. And you can have as many points as you want. I'm going to do this kind of funny diamond here. And then when I'm done, I'm going to double click, and it's going to turn yellow, and that's the shape that I've selected. And then I'm going to click done here. And now I've got my map, and then I can update the count. So you can see this is the number of people that live in the area and of the shape that I drew. So I'm now going to pause the recording. So even though some of these consumer searches and the database searches don't provide a lot of information about lifestyles, I can go ahead and tell you that there is a database called Social Explorer that we do not have time to look at today. It will actually take census data and American community survey data and allow you to make maps and tables based on that. So this is great for publicly available information of a certain region. as long as people are filling out that information or providing that information. But census data is a little different in the sense of it can provide a little bit more specificity, and it can also be more meaningful about the kinds of perhaps demographic information that you might need. We do not have time to go over that today. However, if you are interested and you want a tutorial on how to use Social Explorer, then you can always make a research appointment and we will go over Social Explorer and how that works. So again, it's just census data and American Community Survey data, and you can basically use some of these tools and resources to create visual maps or to create tables and charts based on what you need and what you hope to find. So does anybody have any questions? There is this is a lot of information. This is basically a really great tool that requires a lot of practice. And even with practice, it may not necessarily be perfect the first go, and that's okay too. You're just learning about, like, how does it work? What do I want to do? How do I need to think more creatively or along different lines? So any questions you can think of?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is this database in the same location as the other databases?
So that's a good question. So I'm choosing to access this database through CCCC. Those databases are available to you all if you go to the library and sit down and use the public computers.
We can't do it from home.
No, but your public library card is going to be a really great resource because you can use all of these databases from home. So if nothing else, if you just say at the end of the day, I need to get a public library card, that will open up as a lot of databases and both of the resources that we've looked at.
Can you tell me, like, step 1, 2, 3, how to get to these databases?
It really depends on where you are located, which county you're in, and your public library card. So if you would like, I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and you can specifically ask for, hey, I'm in Lee County or I'm in Chatham County, and I will show you the steps to get there. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. Let me
see
through it. Okay.
So, are there any other questions? Any other things you can think of? Feel free to drop your questions into the chat. I'm also going to drop just your session 3 remarks if you've got something you want to share with me, something you want to know more about. I would love to hear what you have to say. And this is just a chance to sort of say, data access is really challenging. I would like to see some more demonstrations, and then I can find you some resources, or I can create another demonstration for you, or we can think of some materials that would be helpful for you. I did want to say one thing that I think I missed when going through this database, which is I never interpret data. Does that make sense? You might be like, wow, this is a lot of data. What could it mean? That is between you and perhaps the people you're going into business with. Small Business Center can help you talk through your ideas. Publicly available resources through Department of Revenue and Commerce, they can maybe give you some more guidance about what all of this could mean. I can only help you find the data. Does that make sense? So again, I just want to clarify, it's not that, you show me the information or you say, help me find this information, and we find it and you say, what could it mean? It's not to be dismissive when I say, I'm not going to interpret that for you. It's just to stay within my lane. I can help you find the information, and that's sort of where I send you on to your next adventure and your next journey. So that link I just dropped is the session 3 remarks. You can let me know what you think. And then we can either address the questions through email, or we can go and meet based on the Book of Business Librarian form. Okay, so that is really it. Here's my contact information. One more time, here is that small business guide for you. There's that link. You will get all of this information in a follow-up email. And then that will be pretty much it. So I'm going to stop recording, but if you have any questions, you can totally drop them into the chat. And that, I appreciate y'all joining me. Thank you.